There were 9 people at the table. 8 of them stared at me. The 9th was my wife, seated directly across, laughing at a joke I didn't hear, because I was still stuck on what she'd just called me. Leon. My name is not Leon. She said it casually, like it slipped, like it wasn't the first time she'd said that name with a smile. It was our anniversary dinner. Not a romantic one. A group one. Her idea. She said she wanted to include everyone who's been part of our journey. I didn't realize that everyone meant 4 co-workers, 2 of her gym friends, her hairdresser, and 1 guy I'd never met before, the one sitting too close, the one who made her laugh with her hand on his arm. I didn't speak for 20 minutes. Just watched her toast her wine glass and lean into his shoulder as he showed her something on his phone. A vacation photo, I think. I remember because she said, "That was the best night of my life." And she didn't even glance at me. Then, she looked at me directly and said, "Leon, can you pass the bread?" I froze. The table went quiet. She laughed, tried to brush it off. "Oh my God, I'm so tired." Lol, I meant lol. But it was too late. Everyone looked at me like I was the one who should laugh it off. So I passed the bread and sat back in my chair, heart racing, my throat burning. I remembered the name Leon. 2 weeks earlier, I had seen it once, briefly, in a text preview that she quickly swiped away. She said it was a guy from marketing. But now he wasn't just a guy from marketing. Now he was the guy whose name she said by accident in front of a table full of people on the day we were supposed to be celebrating us. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't make a toast. I just smiled, finished my drink, and when dessert came, I excused myself to the restroom, but walked straight out the front door. No one followed. I waited in the car. 10 minutes. 20. 45. She never came out. Eventually, I drove home alone. She showed up 2 hours later and asked why I made things weird. I looked at her and said, calmly, "I hope Leon appreciated the view from my seat." She froze. Like a glitch. A momentary system crash. Then she panicked. "That's not what I meant. I love you." But by then, I had already opened the messages she forgot to delete from the shared tablet. And what I read there shattered the last illusion I had about my wife. I didn't open the tablet right away. I just stared at it, sitting there on the edge of our coffee table, exactly where she always left it after checking emails in the morning. It was the one device she seemed to forget existed when she changed her password habits. She'd wiped her phone, locked her laptop, turned off previews, but the tablet? That was still synced. I knew it. She'd forgotten. Or maybe she didn't think I'd look. For 2 hours after she went to bed, I paced around it like it might explode. My hands were sweating. My throat was dry. I was terrified, and I hated that I was terrified, because some part of me already knew what I was going to find. That Leon wasn't just a slip. That the wine toast at dinner wasn't just a joke. That her distance these last few months had a name. And now it did. When I finally opened the messages, my fingers shook so badly I could barely type the passcode. It was still our wedding date. Irony, I guess. There weren't hundreds of texts. Just dozens. Neatly archived. All under a single contact name. L. I tapped it open. The first message I saw was a photo. Her, in a hotel bathroom mirror, wearing a robe that wasn't hers. Her smile wasn't the smile she gave me. There was lipstick on the collar and a timestamp from the same weekend. She said she had to go to St. Louis for a corporate development summit. The second message. Can't stop thinking about the elevator yesterday. Still feel you on my skin. I think I stopped breathing. I scrolled. Each message was a dagger. Lowell still thinks I'm with Madison. Can't wait for this part of my life to be over. Tonight was the first time I felt alive in years. Alive. We've been married 7 years. I thought we were building something. Saving for a house. Talking about trying for a baby this fall. And yet here she was, alive, with someone who wasn't me. The text stretched back months. Coordinated business trips. Private gym sessions. Accidental overlap in cities. I saw restaurant receipts, hotel confirmations, even a voice memo of her whispering, "I hate how boring he is." And that broke me more than anything. Because I knew exactly who he was. I sat there in the dark, the glow of the screen lighting up my face like a spotlight on a man being publicly humiliated in his own living room. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the tablet. I just sat still for a long, long time, until the battery died and the screen went black. The next morning, I made her coffee. Same as always. Hazelnut creamer. 1 cube of sugar. I placed the cup on the table next to her gym bag and said nothing. She didn't look up. Just said, Thanks, babe, and grabbed her keys. I waited until she was out the door. Then I opened my laptop. If she thought I was boring, she had no idea what I was capable of when I stopped trying to be the nice version of myself. And the first step? I booked a meeting with a divorce lawyer, under her maiden name, just to make sure she wouldn't see the charge. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. Not because I was heartbroken, though I was, but because I was scared of slipping up, of letting her see one thing out of place. A browser tab opened too long. A credit card charge she didn't recognize. A single shift in routine. When someone lies as easily as she did, they're always watching, always calculating. And I wasn't going to give her even a crack to slip through. The lawyer's office was in a quiet building just outside town, above a vegan sandwich shop that smelled like burning kale. His name was Dennis Geller. My friend Trent recommended him years ago when he went through a divorce and lost 2 motorcycles, a boat, and full custody. Hire Dennis, he said, before she does. I walked in shaking, not with fear, with the kind of rage that doesn't scream, it simmers. Dennis sat across from me with his fingers laced, his wedding ring still on. He asked for the name. I said, Tessa Halden. Married name. Her maiden name was Landon. His eyebrow twitched. He tapped on his keyboard, then paused. Your wife already contacted a firm in the city. Not mine, but one I know. She had a consultation 3 weeks ago. I felt my stomach lurch. For what? He tilted the screen slightly. Irreconcilable differences. No mention of infidelity. No property division filed yet. But she was planning. Quietly. The air left my lungs like I'd been punched. All this time, I thought I was the one uncovering secrets. But the reality? She'd already started erasing me from the background. I asked Dennis what to do. He leaned back in his chair, tapped the table twice, and said, You need leverage. Not revenge. Not drama. Just leverage. He explained what I could do legally. What I should avoid. What to screenshot. What to duplicate. What to record. That night, when she fell asleep on the couch in her leggings and hoodie, pretending to be tired after a long day at the gym, I took her phone. Not to unlock it. I knew she changed the passcode. I opened her camera roll. It was empty, but I remembered the cloud login she used for our shared album, back when she used to actually send me things. Photos. Recipes. Dumb TikToks. I logged into the web version with the old password. And there it was. Album L. Hidden. Buried 3 folders deep. But she had been sloppy. Or maybe arrogant. Or maybe she just assumed I'd never think to look anymore. Dozens of pictures. Hotel selfies. Screenshots of flight itineraries. A photo of a necklace I hadn't bought. One image stopped me cold. It was a shot of our anniversary invitation. She had taken a picture of the group text I sent her when I planned the dinner. The caption read, Look at this clown face making it a group thing just to look like he has friends. She'd sent it to Leon. He replied, Enjoy the circus. I'll see you after the show. After the show. It hit me then. She never came home after the dinner. She didn't stay at her friend Madison's. She didn't go for a walk. She went to him. And I had proof now. The next morning, she came into the kitchen humming, wearing the same hoodie. She poured her coffee, kissed my forehead, and said, You've been quiet lately. Everything okay? I looked her in the eye, smiled gently, and said, Just tired, Tess. Long nights at work. She nodded. Don't overdo it. And then she walked away like none of it mattered. But I had already printed the photos, backed up the messages, burned everything to a flash drive I stashed in a place she'd never think to check. Inside the lining of the tool bag she bought me last Christmas, the one I never use. I was done playing the clueless husband. Now I was just waiting for her next move. Because the day she filed first, I would burn her whole narrative to the ground. The moment things began to shift wasn't loud or dramatic. It was a Wednesday evening. Rain. Windshield wipers ticking back and forth. I was parked behind her gym, engine running, lights off. She'd told me she had a 6 p.m. stretch and recovery class. That's all she said. I nodded, kissed her cheek, and waved goodbye like nothing in the world was wrong. But I already knew she wasn't going inside. She got out of the car wearing gym tights and a zip-up hoodie, hair tied back the way she always did for yoga. But instead of going through the main door, she walked across the parking lot, right past the windows, right past the neon open sign. She never looked back, just crossed the street and disappeared around the corner. I didn't follow immediately. I waited 5 minutes, heart hammering so hard I could hear it over the rain. Then I drove slowly around the block. And there he was, leaning against the passenger side of a black car with tinted windows. Hoodie, baseball cap, grinning like he'd already won. Tessa walked up to him and hugged him like they'd done it 100 times. Like it was casual, normal, expected. Then she got in the car. Passenger seat. No hesitation. They didn't drive off right away. They sat there for a while, probably talking, or laughing, or whatever it is people do when they think the one they're betraying is too stupid or too kind to look. But I wasn't either of those things anymore. I took a photo of the plate, backed off, watched them pull out. I didn't follow. I already knew what I needed. It wasn't about catching her in the act. It was about timing. I had to let her think she was safe. Let her dig her own grave a few inches deeper. Then, when she was knee-deep in her comfort, I'd pour the concrete. When she got home 3 hours later, she smelled like vanilla lotion and someone else's cologne. She tossed her bag on the couch, kicked off her shoes, and smiled at me like everything was fine. Class went long, she said, stretching like a cat. My legs are dead. I nodded. You missed the thunder. Worst part's over now. She smiled, kissed me lightly on the mouth. I missed you. And I almost laughed. Not out loud, just inside. That sick, heavy kind of laugh that rattles around when the person in front of you doesn't realize how much you've already seen. That weekend, I did something she never expected. I suggested we take a break from our group thing and spend a night in. Just the two of us. Pizza. A movie. Old school. She loved the idea. God, yes, she said. We need that. I ordered her favorite, pineapple and jalapeno, and picked a movie I knew she'd cry at. And for a few hours, I pretended. I let her lay her head on my shoulder, let her fingers brush my chest like we were still married in the way that mattered. I even made popcorn at halftime and brought it in a bowl we got as a wedding gift. But while she cried at the ending, I stared at her phone on the armrest. Unlocked. No notifications on the screen, but I didn't need them, because I'd already cloned the contents of her cloud to my private drive, and I already had the recordings from her call history, and the photos I'd quietly airdropped from her device 3 days earlier while she was showering. The pieces were in place. But something changed that night. Something I didn't expect. When I was washing the dishes, I noticed her purse was open. Her keys were half hanging out, and attached to her keyring was a brand new key I'd never seen before. Not our house key, not her car key, something different, labeled with a tiny red sticker. When I asked casually what it was, she didn't even hesitate. Oh, she said, reaching over and tucking it away. That's just for Madison's place. I feed her cat sometimes when she travels. And then she smiled. But her smile was just a little too fast. Her voice, just a little too casual. Her hands, just a little too slow. I nodded, said nothing, but I knew something new. She was hiding a place. And that changed everything. Because if she had a second location, she had something to lose. And now I was going to find it. I waited 3 more days before I did anything. I wanted her to relax, to sink a little deeper into her lie. I smiled more. I cooked dinner twice. I even left a little note in her car before she left for work. The kind she used to say made her feel seen. But this time it was bait. Because people who believe they've won get lazy. And Tessa had gotten very lazy. She started leaving her gym bag in the living room again. Stopped double-checking her phone angles. And then, like a blessing from the universe, she tossed the keys onto the kitchen table one night after work and said, "Can you bring those upstairs? I'm dead tired." I waited until she was in the shower. Then I took the keys, drove 5 blocks away, parked under a grocery store sign, and started trying every apartment entrance in a 6-building complex near 7th and Fielder. She'd once mentioned it as a bad part of town. Apparently, that was part of the disguise. The red tag key worked on the 4th door I tried. 3rd floor. Quiet hallway. No numbers on the outside. Just a single potted plant and a faded doormat that said, "Welcome, trouble." I stood there with the key in my hand for a long time. Then I stepped in. The lights were off. Curtains drawn. No alarms. No barking dogs. Just that still, eerie silence of a space that isn't meant to be found. There were 2 pairs of men's shoes by the door. A black leather jacket on the coat hook. A gym bag in the corner that didn't belong to me. And a toothbrush holder with exactly 2 toothbrushes. I didn't need to check who the second one belonged to. I walked through the apartment in slow circles. Kitchen, spotless. A nearly empty fridge. A bag of protein powder on the counter. Bedroom, minimalist. Clean sheets. A bottle of lotion on the nightstand. One open drawer full of men's socks and boxer briefs. But what caught my attention was a receipt. Folded. Left behind under a candle like it was trash. It was from the night of our anniversary. Venora's wine bar. 2 glasses of Merlot. 1 steak. 1 grilled halibut. 1 dessert sampler. Time stamped. 10:47 p.m. She never came home that night until almost midnight. She said she stopped by Madison's for a nightcap. But she was here. With him. The night I walked out of the restaurant humiliated, she met him here. Ate dessert. Slept in a bed that wasn't ours. And laughed, probably, about how I left quietly. I took the receipt. Not because I needed more proof, but because I wanted to leave something missing. Something she'd notice. Something small that would plant the idea in her head that she wasn't as careful as she thought. Before I left, I pulled one final move. I opened her side of the bed, reached into the pillowcase, and slid a single playing card inside. An ace of spades. She doesn't play cards. Never has. But Leon? He plays poker on Thursdays with his buddies, according to his texts. That card wasn't for him. It was a warning. A symbol. And she'd know it came from me. I locked the door on the way out, drove home, placed her keys back on the dresser exactly where she left them, and sat in the kitchen with a cup of coffee until I heard the shower stop. She came downstairs in her robe, smiling. "You're up late," she said, drying her hair. I shrugged. Didn't feel like sleeping. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "I really missed us tonight." And I said, "Me too." But in my head, I was already planning the next move. Because now I knew where her secrets lived. And it was time to let her feel what it's like when someone pretends, just a little too well. It started with something small. The next morning, she was rushing to leave for work, half a slice of toast in her hand, hair still damp, shoes mismatched. That's when I noticed the edge in her voice. Like she was distracted, anxious, but trying too hard not to show it. She kissed me on the cheek and muttered, "Love you, babe," like she always did. Except this time, she hesitated at the word babe, as if she had to remember who she was speaking to. She left her phone charging on the counter. That never used to happen. She's one of those phone never leaves my hand people. But lately, she's been leaving it behind. Forgetting things. Slipping. That was mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 happened that evening, when she came home in silence. No greeting. No smile. Just walked in, dropped her bag, and headed to the bedroom like she didn't want to be seen. I followed, leaning against the doorway as she changed into leggings and a hoodie. The same lazy uniform she wore the night she went to that secret apartment. "You okay?" I asked casually. She nodded too fast. "Just a headache. Long meetings today." I walked closer. "You forget anything?" She stiffened. "No, why?" I tilted my head, watching her. "You sure? You didn't lose anything at the gym?" Her eyes twitched. She turned away too quickly, pretending to look for a scrunchie. "No. Why would you ask that?" I shrugged, let a second pass, then walked away without saying another word. Now the idea was planted. Something was missing. Something was off. And she didn't know how I knew. The next day, she didn't go to the gym at all. Instead, she came home early, unannounced. I was in the garage, organizing old tools just to keep my hands from shaking. She stood in the doorway for a few seconds before clearing her throat like she needed permission to speak. "I've been thinking," she said. "Maybe we should take a weekend away. Just us. Clear the air." I didn't respond right away. Just kept sorting sockets and screws. "Don't you think that'd be nice?" she added. I turned slowly and asked, "Are you trying to clear the air or clear your conscience?" She blinked. "What does that mean?" I didn't answer. I just stared at her long enough to make her uncomfortable, then walked past her like she wasn't even there. That night, she didn't touch her dinner. She barely spoke. And around 11 p.m., I heard her pad down the stairs in silence. She didn't know I was still awake, lying in bed, pretending. She grabbed her keys quietly, slipped out. I gave it 10 minutes, then followed. She didn't go far, just 2 blocks over. Parked under a street lamp and sat in her car, engine off, staring at her phone. After a few minutes, she pulled something from the glove box, held it up to the light. The ace of spades. She'd found it. She was turning it over and over in her hand like it was a foreign object. Her face looked pale even under the dim yellow light. I didn't need to see her expression to know what was happening inside her head. She wasn't sure who left it, but she knew why. She stayed in the car for nearly 30 minutes before finally driving off. Not to the secret apartment. Not to a friend's place. Just drove aimlessly around town before returning home and slipping into bed without a word. She didn't touch me, didn't face me, just lay there stiff and still, like a guest in her own life. And I was wide awake the entire time. The next morning, I found her phone open on the bathroom sink. There were 6 deleted texts in her thread with Leon, but I'd already backed them up the week before. One of them read, "I think someone's watching us." And his reply? "Then maybe it's time to blow it all up." I smiled to myself as I locked her phone and left it exactly where she dropped it, because soon it would be blown up. But not by me, by her. I was just giving her the rope. She was already tying the knot herself. The next time she lied to me, it was almost polite. It was Friday morning. She poured herself a coffee, kissed me on the forehead, and said, "I'm going to Madison's lake house this weekend. Girls only. No cell service. You can use the time to catch up on your projects." She said it like she was doing me a favor. I smiled softly and nodded. Sounds relaxing. She exhaled with visible relief. Like she'd been waiting for pushback and didn't get it. Like she believed, once again, that I was still asleep at the wheel. But the second she left the house, I opened the closet and pulled down the travel bag she didn't take. The gray one she usually used for trips. I knew she'd packed light this time. Something was off. She didn't even bring a charger. And she always brings a charger. So I checked the other bag. Inside, buried under a spare pair of jeans and a hoodie, was a padded envelope. It had my name on it. Not hers. Not Lowell and Tessa. Just Lowell. No return address. But I didn't need one. I opened it slowly. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper. A printed photo. And a flash drive. The photo was from the apartment. Me, standing in the doorway. Blurry, but clear enough. Someone had a camera set up. Possibly motion activated. The paper had 4 words typed in the center. "You should stop digging." No signature. No explanation. Just that. I stared at it for a long time, then slipped the flash drive into my laptop. It contained exactly one video. Security footage, the same night I visited the apartment. From the building hallway. Me entering. Me exiting. They had me on record, which meant they'd seen the card. The missing receipt. Maybe even suspected I took more than that. But what they didn't know was that I'd already duplicated the apartment key, and I'd planted something of my own under the bed frame. A tiny recorder. Battery-powered. Silent. Looping every 12 hours. It had already captured 4 nights of conversations before I swapped it out again the previous morning. So I wasn't just digging. I was listening. I played the audio files. Most of it was nothing. Music, small talk, sleep. But one clip hit like a punch to the throat. Her voice, "I think he knows. He looks at me like he's waiting. He's not stupid, Leon." And then his voice, flat and irritated. "Then leave him already. You said you would." Her, "I can't. Not yet. His name's on everything. The mortgage, the accounts. If I mess this up, I get nothing." Leon, "Then make him mess it up." Her, "I'm trying." Those 3 words stayed with me. I'm trying. Not to fix us. Not to come clean. But to trap me. To push me until I snapped. So she could claim abandonment. Or emotional instability. Or whatever excuse she was going to feed a judge when she filed first. But she didn't know I had already spoken to Dennis again. And this time, we weren't just collecting evidence. We were preparing an exit. The next evening, while she was supposedly at the lake house, I drove by. There was no car out front. No lights inside. No music. No laughter. No wine glasses on the porch. I circled the block twice to be sure. Then I drove downtown. Parked 2 blocks from the Sherwood Plaza Hotel. Waited. And at 8:23 p.m., I saw her. Tessa. In a short black dress. Laughing. Holding Leon's hand like she used to hold mine. He opened the door for her like I used to. Placed his hand on the small of her back like I used to. And she leaned into him like I never existed. They vanished inside the hotel. I didn't follow them in. Didn't cause a scene. I just waited 15 minutes, then walked calmly to the front desk and handed the clerk a sealed envelope. Inside was a copy of the photo from the apartment hallway and a printed note. Delivered to room 612. Slide under door. No name. I walked away without looking back, but I knew exactly what room they were in, because I'd called 2 hours earlier and booked the one next door. Just to listen. Just to wait. And the next morning, someone else showed up at our house. A man in a gray suit. Mid-40s. Business casual. Holding a leather folder. I opened the door, pretending to be confused. He said, "Apologies. I'm looking for Tessa Halden. She listed this address on her application." I raised an eyebrow. Application for what? He opened the folder, turned it around, and pointed to the heading. Rental application, Pendleton Luxury Apartments. My heart didn't race. I didn't flinch. I just smiled. Ah, I said. She must have forgotten to mention it. The man nodded awkwardly. She said she'd be back Sunday evening. Should I return then? I held the door a moment longer, then said calmly, actually, you might want to wait for her call. Because by the time she walked through that door, she'd find everything waiting. Her name, her lies, and her replacement. She came home Sunday evening exactly like she said she would. Hair slightly curled, makeup minimal but fresh. She walked through the door like nothing had happened, like she hadn't spent the weekend in a hotel under a different name with the man who mocked our marriage. She kissed me on the cheek. I brought takeout, she said, lifting a brown paper bag. Your favorite. For a moment, I didn't answer. I just stared at her. And that was enough to make her glance away. Her hands were a little too busy unpacking food. Her smile a little too bright. I sat at the table. She joined me. I watched her try to act normal, making small talk, complimenting the meal, mentioning a friend from work. She was spinning the usual web, making herself look blameless, harmless, predictable. And that's when I slid the manila folder across the table. She stared at it, didn't touch it. What's this? She asked, even though she already knew. Your weekend, I said. She didn't open it, just sat there, paralyzed. I know everything, Tessa, I said, keeping my voice calm. The apartment, the hotel, the fake lake house, the plan to make me look unstable so you could leave with the money and a clean story. Her fingers twitched. She opened the folder slowly. Inside, photos, receipts, screenshots, printed texts, all time-stamped, all cataloged. Her whole double life, laid out like a legal exhibit. She stared for a long time. Then she said the same sentence I'd heard before. That's not what I meant. I love you. I nodded. You've said that before. This, she motioned to the folder. This isn't. This doesn't mean I don't care about you. It means you don't respect me, I said. And you've gambled everything that I'd be too soft to ever fight back. She looked smaller now, like someone trying to hold on to a lie that already floated away. You're not a monster, Tessa, I said quietly. But you chose this. Again and again. And now, I'm choosing something too. She sat still, waiting. I pulled out a second folder. A copy of the divorce papers Dennis and I had prepared. I placed them gently on the table beside her. No lawyers needed. I won't go after your accounts. I won't humiliate you publicly. All I want is for you to sign these, walk away, and never contact me again. Tears formed, but she didn't cry. Not fully. She blinked quickly, as if trying to control the scene like she always had. And if I don't sign? I smiled, not unkindly. Then the folder with all your weekend memories goes to Leon's boss, your HR department, and Pendleton Luxury's leasing office. In that order. Silence. Then, finally, the sound of a pen scratching paper. She signed. No screaming. No denial. Just the slow sound of defeat. She left the house the next day, quietly, with 2 suitcases and a hollow look in her eyes. She didn't ask for anything else. She didn't leave a note. She didn't call. And she never came back. A week later, I had the locks changed. Cleared the last of her clothes from the closet. Gave the wedding china to Goodwill. Sat on the floor of my living room with a beer and a plate of takeout, thinking it would feel lonelier than it did. But it didn't. Because I wasn't a man left behind anymore. I was a man who stood up, walked through the fire, and came out the other side holding his own damn pen. A month later, I found the receipt she accidentally left in the kitchen drawer, the one for the necklace she bought him. I smiled, put it through the shredder, and tossed the pieces into the trash. 2 weeks after that, I took a trip. Just me. Just peace. Just sunlight on my face and not one person who thought I was weak. And in that silence, I realized something I'd forgotten. I like who I am when I'm no longer begging someone to remember my name.